Welcome, everyone. I want to thank Gavin McGarry, who is founder of Jumpwire Media, for joining us today. Gavin has been on social media and helping clients for over 10 years with his company. So thanks very much, Gavin. And is there anything else that you can share about your background and your history with social?
No, other than I'm old. And, I think a lot of people come and meet me and they're just like, you can't know anything about social media, you're too old. And I know I shouldn't say that. A lot of people, oh, you're not. But I've been doing this for 10 years, more than that, actually, probably like 12 years. So it's very interesting. I mean, think about what has happened in social media in 10 years, right? We did not have, YouTube was barely around 10 years ago. Facebook is, I think, like 11. It wasn't a big, the change in which social media has, and it's incredible. And that it's so negative, the backlash against social media, it's being blamed for everything. And yet they never focus on the positive side of social media, right? There's so much positive. I connect with people around the world daily through social media and through instant messaging and chat. Because I've lived in London and Toronto and New York, and now I live here in Los Angeles. And I was talking on Weibo a couple of months ago with a team in China who are looking to hire us to do some social media. And everything was done on the Weibo chat. We were just, we're just chatting away. They made group chat off. It's social media, and that's, I guess, we would have to define what social media is. But, when you talk about social media, I think people think of it as the replacement to TV and radio, a broadcast medium. And I don't look at it that way. I look at it as the platforms that we use to connect with other human beings around the world.
Yeah, I have friends who have alternate families on social media, or, they actually physically get together and fly in and meet each other up. And,
really?
So it's pretty incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. How would think about that? Yeah. there are some people there's a lot of people that I've met on social media that I've never met in person that are, and I'm not sure I want to.
But some you love to, right? Because you go to a conference or something and it's it's amazing to actually meet you in person.
Yeah. And that is probably something that I should give some advice on for social media that a lot of people don't think about, is that make sure that the picture that you take is pretty much up to date. Once a year, take a picture. My picture is a year and a half old. I think it was maybe even 2 years old. And I'm just going to get new pictures done and try and take a picture in the clothing that you normally wear. Because when I go to conferences, people come up to me and the number one reinforcement that I'm doing the right thing is oh, you look exactly like your picture. Oh, I can see you across the room. I knew exactly what you looked like. So, as my, as my brand sort of morphs and I get a little bit older and I don't wear things that I would have wore where I was younger, or, depending on where I live in the world, I live in Los Angeles here and it's much more casual than when we lived in New York or even London. So my clothing choice has changed and that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that you're keeping up to date so that when people come and meet you, they're like, hey, oh yeah, you look exactly like your photo. And I know that I'm getting older and it's not working because people aren't saying that anymore. The bad side.
Well, since you brought it up, and you've been in social media over a decade. What is it that you still love about it? And where do you think people, especially businesses, where do you think they're missing out on opportunities they could be taking advantage of?
What do I love about social media? I love everything about it. I love that it's overwhelming. I love that I need to figure it out. I love the fact that it's a problem. I love all the new platforms. I really enjoy how the platforms work and how they suck people in. I know you're not supposed to say that out loud because they consider them, the platforms consider the audience users, and it's like drugs. And there's lots of people from Google and Facebook that have left, and they're all trying to change their lives because they feel like they've gotten people all on these drugs. And, TikTok and Instagram have instigated, these ends, you're not allowed to, you can only be on the platform for 2 hours, then you must have a break. And so I think that the problem is a lot of negative about social media. And I would like to tell people why. The reason why there's a lot of negative information about, especially Facebook, is that Facebook and Google are essentially month on month, year on year, decimating radio and TV advertising. And they have been for a long time. So if you control the New York Times, or you control I shouldn't single out the New York Times, but if you control a media empire that's based in traditional media, and something new comes along, what are you going to do? You're going to subtly tell at the next barbecue with your head editor that, yeah, we need to start bashing Facebook. They're bad. And you never see anything really positive about what Facebook does. It's all negative. And the fact that, they want to be regulated, which they do, that there should be more regulation, which there's going to be. And it's following the exact same steps that, radio and TV went through as well, too. Radio started out in people's garages and had to go. So I think that those are the things I love about how it's allowing human beings to communicate, and the fact that it's not really a broadcast format, right? Is that it used to be that you just broadcast out, but those days have changed, or they've stopped. And I think that now it's very much one-to-one. You can have really intimate connections, as we were just talking about, with people on social media. And now, because I've been yammering on, I forgot what your second part of the question was.
No problem. I agree. I think we forget why we all got so excited about getting on the different platforms in the first place. So it's a good reminder. So where do you think the opportunities are that companies are missing?
Right now, a lot of companies are missing groups. So this idea of, Nike and Apple, just to give you an indication, on their Facebook pages haven't posted to their Facebook page in over a year, right? So everything is moving into groups and communities. And at Jumpwire, we pivot every couple of years. We're working 2 years out. So right now we're spending a lot of time looking at AI. We're spending a lot of time looking at how, what the human behavior is around social media. But right now it's all about community. So building groups online. You're hearing about the rise of Discord. And if you don't know what that is, it's sort of like a Slack. And it's just for gamers generally, but that's starting to spread out a little bit. So these communities are being built, they're being managed by people. That's what we do. That's where we focus, is in these communities. And I think that a lot of companies are missing that, because the people in the C-suite, the CEOs and that sort of, they just don't understand. It's something that their kids do. And I don't think people understand the power of social, and the fact that you have to pay to play on these platforms. Well, there is a new way that you don't have to pay to play, and that is building a group. That's building a fan base. And for example, if I just use Facebook groups as an example, you build a group up to 1,200 people. Those 1,200 people, that is plus or minus 3% statistically, and we will put all sorts of things in around the brand. Like, what do you like about the brand? We use them as a free focus group. And as anyone who's used focus groups or had to actually use focus group testing, it's expensive, right? So this is a cheap way to do that. So those are the things that that I think that people are missing. I don't think they're understanding the power of these groups and communities.
One of the things that you posted on your website is that most companies are posting the wrong content.
Yeah.
Is it that it's boring, or it's too promotional? Those things and more?
Everything. Well, the main thing we use is that on social media, you don't, no yelling, no selling, no telling. So when you're doing organic social media, you don't want to be yelling, telling, or something. Now, you are going to yell sometimes and get upset because it's going to be fun. You are going to sell, but very subtly. And you are going to tell people what to do. Those are the cold, hard realities. But you want to start you want to have some rules, and those are the ones to follow. So now, when we are posting, or we're allowing our clients to post, or telling us what to post, we want to post content that thinks about their audience. And many of them, they have their social media teams inside the marketing department. So the marketing department just wants to sell, right? So we call that performance-based social media. And if you want to do performance-based social media, then you should probably do that on the ad platforms like Facebook and things like that. And if you are going to sell on your platform using your organic, use the 80-20 power law, right? 80% of the content should not be about your brand. It should be for the audience. And 20% can be about your brand, talking about you. So if you walk into a room and you talk about nothing about yourself, and you're in a group of people, people are still going to smile nicely, but they're going to walk away. But if you give them 80% of things that are interesting, they're like, oh, I want to keep talking with this guy. Who is this guy? What's he doing? What's interesting? And you can it's probably a perfect example here is that I'm not talking about Jumpwire at all. I should be saying Jumpwire every 15 seconds. Come to Jumpwire, follow us at Jumpwire Media, all that sort of stuff. But I'm not, because that's not what people want to hear. They don't care about Jumpwire. They're like, can this guy offer me anything interesting? Questionable. But if I can, right, then they're going to identify with my brand better. And I think that that's what people are a little bit missing in social media, is that you got to give away a lot to get back a little.
It's that social part too, right? Like they forget it's a social platform, and so just pushing messages out just really doesn't work.
No, and I think that now, with Facebook, for example, I'll just keep using Facebook because most people know it. But with Facebook groups, you have the opportunity to do polls. You can, you can ask people lots of questions. Like you have comments. For what we do is we divide the week up into 5 days, and we've got like Meme Monday, and Polling Tuesday, and Wacky Wednesday, and Group Friday. Whatever it is, we've got depending on the client, we'll make each day has something that we put in, and it doesn't take very long. And then people go in and you remember, most people have pretty boring lives. They go to pretty boring jobs. Make it fun for them. So that's why we deal mostly with entertainment companies and those sorts of things. So we're in the entertainment business, and we want to keep people entertained. But that's how you identify with your brand. And if you do it on a regular basis, you don't have to do a lot. And I would like to say that you don't have to actually post a lot. You can post once a week. Most of our clients are posting once a week. But 5 years ago, even 4 years ago, we were posting up to 24 to 36 times a day on Facebook, because that's what got around the algorithm. Remember those days when you posted a lot and everybody saw it? Well, now that's over. The AI is so good now. The AI is around an 8-year-old. Back then, it used to be around a 5-year-old. And if you've ever spent time with an 8-year-old kid, they are really smart. In fact, generally, most of them are smarter than me, right? They know how to manipulate the heck out of you. So the AI is getting to that place. And that's what's interesting now from a social standpoint, is that, and why people are just getting so upset with social media. I'm just like, the whole talk about hate speech and all this, it's just they have no clue how these platforms work, and the speed at which they're taking content off. You can't just put up whatever you want. We've had 2 or 3 clients have their entire Facebook pages shut down for putting up one little thing that might have been construed as hate speech. Yeah. So it's an interesting time about free speech, and it's a real debate that's going on.
All right. So one of the mundane things that most companies, or not most, I should say, there are some companies who still get into this trap of, they hire somebody, whether it's an employee, contractor, or an agency, to set up their social media and manage it. And then they don't keep their own login info, or they don't change it once that relationship ceases. Oh, yeah. And so I'm sure you've heard of some horror stories. Do you want to share, just to help, incent people to make sure that you keep control of your own accounts?
Well, that has never happened to us because we're perfect. I just wanted to point that out. No, it is something. We have had issues in which, we've gone into big companies that you all know and love. And we found like 5 people who had been fired a year and a half before, or 1 person had been fired and 4 people who had left. And they were still admins on the account, and it had like millions of fans. And I'm like, this might be something you want to address. Listen, it comes by now. It comes by people naturally. No one wants to keep updating their passwords. Our biggest issue right now is passwords. I don't know if you're using LastPass or OnePass or whatever, but if you have passwords, now we use Facebook Manager, right, which most people use now if you're an agency. So you actually don't put me personally on, you put my agency onto your Facebook page, for example. Yeah. And Instagram's coming out with the same thing, and it may actually be in beta depending on where you are in the world. But where you can, when we finish a contract or a company decides not to work with us anymore, they just hit the button, delete us, and it deletes all the people that work with us. So they don't ever have to worry about it. So there are some safeguards in that, but there's still tons of, people out there who have the same passwords. And even though people get fired, they don't change them, because now many companies are on 8, 9 platforms, and you have to go through and change every single one. Then everyone's going to got to learn the new password. And then, you'll trying to get something out. It's a nightmare. So I understand why most companies don't do it. However, it is a security risk, and you have to be careful. I found that many people who work in social media aren't that, they're not that vindictive. If they leave somewhere, they know that, it's a serious lawsuit. Like if someone came onto one of our platforms that used to work for us and did something malicious, even on Jumpwire, it's a massive lawsuit. Like that we would win. And you just don't want to do that. So I'm not that concerned. I have heard horror stories of people that have had, crazy ex-employees go back on and do crazy things. I've heard about people being hacked into. But for the most part, surprisingly, there's not that much of it. And if sure, everyone's now going to try and hack Jumpwire. Great. This is going to be awesome. This is not what I anticipated. But you get, it is a problem. You need to regulate it tightly. And what we do is we use a spreadsheet. We have the login, who has the login, when the login was set up. And we try and change the passwords every year, every 6 months, depending on the size of the client. But most of it now, we have two-factor authentication on. So when you have two-factor, if you're not using two-factor, you are crazy. They all have two-factor. Facebook has it, Instagram has it, Twitter has it. YouTube has it. So you should have two-factor on. Some of the newer ones, maybe not so much. But TikTok, I haven't actually turned on my two-factor on TikTok yet. So I'm not really sure on that one, but I'm pretty sure it has it.
All right. So we were talking earlier about companies posting either boring or sales-focused content, but there are lots who are doing a great job. So who do you think are your favorites at, who you think are really doing a great job at providing engaging content that also leads to sales?
Great question. No idea. Because it really depends on your industry. Right. So, in the entertainment industry, sure, there's lots of people that are doing things that are really entertaining. Does it lead to sales? Nobody knows. Right. Unless you have attribution on. And so, for example, on Facebook ads and Instagram ads and even WhatsApp, you can have attribution that shows that someone clicked on something, they went through and they bought something. So we do a couple of clients that have ticket sales. Very easy for us to see the journey all the way through. For social media itself, like organic social media, a little bit more difficult. We do use Bitly links. We do try and make sure that we do use codes so that people will use a specific code and we know that it came from this particular campaign that was organic. But generally, if we're doing sales, it's being done on an ad platform. And organic social is about awareness. So keeping the brand top of mind, helping people sign up for email newsletters. And I think I should probably pause here and say that if you're a small, medium-sized business, even if you're a big business, but if you're small or medium, you want to make sure you diversify your platforms. What we find with many medium-sized or small businesses that they tend to not diversify the platform, meaning that they're all on Facebook or they're all on Instagram generally, because most young people understand Instagram. And they have, 25-year-olds running their Instagram accounts, and then they get all these, and then they get shut out of Instagram for whatever reason. And their entire, we just had a client was shut out for 3 months from Facebook, and they have 1.7 million fans. And we said, well, when we set this up for you, did you diversify? Did you do Twitter and Instagram? And did you build up an email newsletter so that you can still talk to people? No, well, we didn't, So, from our standpoint is that you want to make sure you're diversifying. And what we look at is engagement. And, we look at measurement and narrative. So those are the two things that we're looking at, data, strategy, implementation in terms of crawl, walk, run for your strategy. But then you also want to be looking at measurement and narrative. So what's the story that people are going to have over the next year? Right? I just hit my thing there. Sorry. So that's why I'm bouncing around a bit. But, what is the narrative? of the story of your brand for the next year for social media. I know most people don't think about it. We'll just post things that are fun. I'm like, no, what story are you trying to tell? What's the beginning, middle, and end? And then how are you going to measure this stuff? And sometimes you can't measure it. Like everyone's like, oh, I need data. Yes, we all need data, but it's very difficult sometimes to get the data. I mean, Facebook is a perfect example. They were making up the video views for the longest time, and we think they still are. We have a Jumpwire Media Facebook group that anyone watching this can come and join. And we share lots of information in there. And a guy shared yesterday that, he had 0 likes, but 100,000 views, 0 people on a Facebook page, but it had 100,000 views. And then he's like, how did this happen? So there's lots of weird things that are going on out there. But I think overall, if you stick with the crawl, walk, run for building it and looking at what the narrative and the measurement are, you should be good.
Great. So that's a great lead-in actually to talking about strategy. Because I know you've recommended to clients, you got to refresh that strategy, every 6 months or yearly at least? Yeah. And so what kinds of things do your clients come up with when they're going through that process?
I mean, again, the 2 key ones are narrative and measurement, right? The big one is measurement if you're in a marketing specific area, but I think every 6 months you should be looking at it. What we tell our clients and what we do for our clients is that we have a very set process. So you need an audit. So we do an audit for our clients, which is a detailed 60-page, hour-long presentation of about everything that's available publicly. Right? And you can get these audits done by anybody. You can just Google a social media audit, and some of them are super cheap, and you can get them for like nothing, like $100. And then, ours is quite expensive because it's very in depth. But it depends on what you need. But I would do an audit. And you should do that audit every 6 months, every year. So we call up our clients or past clients every 6 months, and we're like, okay, hey, you need to do another audit because you're revealing things about what's happening on the platform. Then the next thing you need to do is you need to optimize all your platforms. So for example, right now, I think Facebook has 126 or 136 different levers that you need to make sure you're optimized. And generally, when we go in and optimize a client, their platforms from Instagram, Twitter, all that stuff will jump up 20% engagement because they just have the wrong settings. There's so many settings, right? And generally, people are hiring young people to come in and do their social media, which is totally fine. But the problem is that they're generally using it from the perspective of a personal rather than a business. And it's a big difference because the metrics that you're asking, the metrics that you need are really important that you focus on those. So, I mean, having an audit, making sure you're keeping it. And then the last thing I would say would be is have it. It doesn't have to be every week, but at least every couple weeks, get the young people in your company, or if you don't have young people in your company, get someone in your company, maybe you, to do a half-hour presentation about where your metrics are. Just take a snapshot that day. Right? Like, this is where our Facebook page is. This is what the number of people we have in our group. This is our number on Instagram. This is Twitter. This is the engagement. This is the top post that was available. And then you have that snapshot, and it's really great. Like once a year, around Christmas or around the holiday season, just go backwards and look at the one for January, the one for February, the one for March, and you'll get a good holistic idea of like what's going on. And you can sort of make your strategy for the next year. And that's what we're doing right now. Like right now, as I'm talking to you, most of our world is about audits, getting ready for the 2020 strategy. Most people are doing that in August. So around August, people are looking to 2020 and they're looking to the next year. And we start having all our audits coming in September, October, November, depending on the people. But if you do a weekly one or a monthly one yourself internally, you don't need to spend big bucks to hire people like us, right? You can do it yourselves. The only difference you get for hiring an agency is that this is all we do 24/7, 7 days a week. That's it. And we don't do anything else. I only focus on social media. So if you want me to, if you don't need that, you can just do it yourself and Google it online. I tell a lot of my clients, don't spend the money on us, just Google it.
Yeah, I think that's a great tip.
I would say another little tip to give you is that if you need this done, go on, Upwork or Fiverr and ping those people and say, hey, listen, I think some people are charging like $20 for like an audit, for your client thing. So just push the button on the audit. And then, if it's great, you're going to get what you pay for, right? Obviously, you're paying them $20 to have them keep selling you. So it's a lead generation thing, but there's nothing to say you have to keep doing it. But you say, yeah, I'll do a $20 audit with you every, 3 months. $20. I mean, just don't go out for dinner that week. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's right. That's a great idea. Or give up coffee for 4 days or whatever. Don't go to Starbucks.
Never.
Yeah.
It'll never happen. It's a drug.
Do you have any forecasts or do you see any trends coming up in 2020? What kinds of things are you looking out for?
Everything we're working on right now is AI based.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the targeting is being pulled back. Facebook's having to deal with that. So ads are not working as well as they used to. Listen, it's the Wild West out there right now. Really, you need to be really focused if you are using social media for marketing. And it really is falling sort of under marketing for small, medium-sized businesses. It's a marketing platform. That's how people are using it. But it's also a great way to have a conversation with your audience, right? So we focus in human behavior and communities, but have a conversation with your audience and talk about the narrative. What do you want people to take away from your content over the year? Oh, they were doing this, because your business is always developing. Even if it's going down, people like a bad story and then the phoenix to rise out of it. So you're like, yeah, we're struggling with this. Most people won't put bad stuff up. I mean, Jumpwire, we try not to, like we're having a bad day. We don't have enough clients, or we need to get more of this or more of that, or we don't understand this new platform that's come out, or, whatever, well, we try not to put that out. No one wants to make themselves. So it's all like humble bragging all the time. And you can see that on LinkedIn, which is a whole other discussion.
Yeah.
You can see all this humble bragging. We're all getting tired of it, right? We're just like, okay, I get it. You another photo of you and your staff and how great you are. Awesome. We don't believe any of that because we've all been inside businesses. But it's very difficult to be open and transparent, right? Really hard.
Yeah.
So I think that what we're looking at, where we're spending most of our time, is in AI. A lot of content being created by AI very quickly. So prices for social media is coming down. You can get you can get pretty good social media now because people are using AI bots to build the social media. You can get it quite inexpensively. The issue is that I think people think it's easy. It's very, very time consuming. It's an extremely time-consuming thing. And if you measure it, do you get the return from the amount of time you put in? I think most CEOs are saying, nah, not really. I don't care. Just put it out there and we'll hope for the best. But the companies that are doing it well or hiring agencies to do it are they're seeing results. I mean, we see it when we stop all of our social media or we go on a little break, we see it drop. Like we see everything drop. So, even at a B2B business like us, it's important to be out there having the conversations and then mining the information about the people who are your clients.
And are you on all platforms? You mentioned LinkedIn, but
Yep.
Sometimes, companies think, oh, Instagram, that's just for showing selfies, or which we know is not true. But
could be. If they're a selfie company, if they want to be selfie. I'm okay with that. I mean, listen, the way we look at it this way from our standpoint, and I don't know if it's right or wrong, but this is just from my years of doing it. Facebook is generally a bit older and it's friends and family, right? People don't want you putting up things like news and stories and things like that on your Facebook page. They want to hear about your friends or your travel. It's that's sort of people over 40 sort of thing. Instagram's younger and much more female. And it sort of, moves the gamut a little bit in terms of it is the top product right now. Everybody's on it. So you need a presence there. Make sure you have a business profile. There are two profiles. The regular profile, you don't get any data. If you switch to a business profile on Instagram, you get all the data about who's looking at what and all that sort of stuff. So that's important. But then we look at things like Pinterest. Pinterest, a pin survives for like 2 years.
Yeah.
A tweet lasts for like 15 minutes. Now, Twitter we use for news and information, mostly because most of the journalists journalists are on Twitter. So if it's where we do the press releases and stuff like that. TikTok, I don't really have a strategy on that. It's just the best platform. If you can go on TikTok and try and get off it, good luck. YouTube, I mean, you want to have something up on YouTube. It's the second biggest search engine on the planet. So you want to have a few things up on YouTube that people can search with meta tags so they can find you and find some information. And then, I mean, there's all the other ones that sort of filter out. You know, you've got like, you know, Discord, which is more community, Slack, which is more community. Are they really social media platforms? Communication platforms, yes. Yeah. But, you know, people are using them for private social media groups. And I guess that's the last thing I would say is that it's really right now, it's all about private social media, like creating private environments in which you can regulate the types of people that come in and getting rid of the trolls and all that sort of stuff. And that's why most people aren't posting on their Facebook pages anymore. They're putting people into groups so they can bounce people really easily.
Great. Well, Gavin, thank you so much. You packed in a lot of information, shared a lot of tips for everyone. Thanks so much for doing this today.
Thanks for having me on. And if anyone needs to find us, we're at Jumpwire Media, or you can go old school, email and info@jumpwiremedia.com. I really appreciate you having me on the show.
Thanks.